Hi guys, it's Debbie with Debbie J's Crafting Corner, and today I have got another Spellbinders video. This is using the card kit of the month for the month of March. I'm running a little bit behind. I am so sorry. It's the things. Anyway, I'm going to be making these three cute little cards using... it goes that way. Using the card kit of the month, and you guys know that I am loving the dies in the club kits this month, so I had to use the dies, and I used a little bit of the ephemera, but not a whole lot. But I love that little, isn't that little lamb just so precious? Oh my goodness. And he can be a bunny too, so it is awesome for all of your Easter kind of projects. So let's go ahead and get started on that video. So let's first take a look at some of the things that are in this kit. We've got some glitter thickers, we've got some dies, we've got some stamps, and I am going to be focusing mostly on the dies. Here are all those dies that come in this little set. It doesn't look like a lot, but oh my goodness, you can do so much with them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting everything out. I'm using some white cardstock to cut out the pieces that I figure would be white. That's going to be the bunny's head, his ears, and this little fluff, the little fluff piece there. And I believe I'm also going to add one of the flowers. I've got a little flower die there that's got the flower shape and the little circle that goes in the middle. To begin with, I thought I'd do everything, and then I changed my mind. Decided, nope, I'm going to do different colors, but I am going to cut out 6 of everything because I want to make a bunch of these little characters. So now I've got all my little bits cut out. I've got the little faces. Let me just show you the dies that go with them. So we've got the face. We've got this piece that cuts out a lot of different ones, and I cut this one out of white. So all of these pieces here are all done from this piece. My thought is that it's basically all of the white part of the ears. So whatever color fur you're doing, that's going to be what you're going to want to use. And then this piece cuts out all of the inside. So I've got all my little pink pieces. And then, oh, we've got these little pieces, which are for little the fur on the top of the little lamb's head. And then I've got some more bits over here. And I'm dropping things again. We've got a cute little bow that I decided to cut out of the gold mirror cardstock. We've got some flowers. I am just dropping things all over the place. So I've got this little die that cuts out the shape and the little inside of the flower, and I cut that out of some yellow and some white. Figured I'd make some cute daisies. And then we've got this piece that cuts out a little stem for the flowers that says hello. So I cut a bunch of those out. Basically what I did is I cut 6 of everything, and then we're going to see how it all goes together. And I have a feeling, just laying out all of the white, that I'm going to have some extras. So let me go ahead and get started putting some of this stuff together. Okay, so I have now separated and organized everything because I've got, like I said, 6 of everything, and I can't tell you how many times I have put things on the wrong thing because I didn't have my my idea straight or knowing how it went together. So we've got 4 different sizes, 4 different things in the pink. So we've got these long thin ones that go with the lamb ears. We've got these that have got a little notch cut out of them that are going to go with this other piece that has a notch cut out of them, because this is the ear that folds over. So it's kind of folded down. I think that is cute. And that was something I didn't know when I first looked at this. And if you just look at what comes out of the dies, you may not remember what it all is. And then we've got these long, thinner ones that go with the big ear. So I'm going to go ahead and start just gluing all of the pink down, and then we can go on to the next bit. Okay, so the last thing we need to do with the pink anyway is give these little guys some little cheeks. Now the die for the face cuts out the eyes and cuts out the cheeks and the nose. And to do the nose and the cheeks, I'm just taking some more of that pink cardstock, and I am just going to adhere that right behind the head, making sure to have enough cut off the edges so it doesn't show through. Needs a little bit more cut off. Okay. And that'll be good. And I'm just going to add a little bit of liquid glue around the edges of the holes that were left by the die. And then put my little piece of pink cardstock behind there. And now my little bunny or lamb is going to have some rosy cheeks and a cute little pink nose. That just looks adorable. Okay, so I need to do this last one, and I did go ahead and kind of arrange some of the pieces so I could see kind of how cute this is going to be. So here we go with this kind of looks like a bunny with his ears down, but then when you add a little tuft of hair, he's a cute little lamb. These guys are just adorable. I'm also adding a little strip of black behind the eyes, just like I did the pink. Since all those little bits are together, I think I'm going to go ahead and at least put together a couple of the little lambs. I think they're adorable. Start off with, I'm going to put a little bit of fluff on their heads. And what's fun is this die could also be a little cloud. I think that's kind of fun too. There we go, and then I'll just add the little ears. And since these are just a long oval, it doesn't really matter which side's up. They'll both work perfectly fine. Go ahead and put that one there. And I'll put this one on this side and hold it down too. And now we've got us a cute little lamb. He's just adorable. So I'm going to go ahead and start assembling kind of the focal image, I think, of my card. I'm not sure what I want to do with this one. Okay, so this first card is ready to put together. What I decided to do is use some of the pattern papers that came in the card kit of the month and basically layer them up. I used the stitched oval, what is this one called? I have to say this is one of my favorite ones. Oval, stitch, and border is what this is called. So this one basically does this cute stitching border, but I guess when I look at it, I don't think of stitching. I think of eyelets. You know how our clothes when we were kids, a lot of times they would have cute little eyelets along the collar and that sort of thing, and I absolutely love that soft detail. So I've used it quite a few times on some of my cards. So I'm also going to use a piece of pattern paper that coordinates perfectly from that kit too, and mat that on some white cardstock. It's a little bit crooked, but that's okay. Go ahead and put this down. And kind of center that in the middle of my card. And I don't think it really matters which way the pattern goes because it's going to be basically covered up. Okay, so now I've got all of this so I can put my eyelet piece down, but I think I'm going to put some foam on the back of that. I'm also going into my foam scraps that I haven't actually, this is basically foam sheets that I used years ago and have not done anything with, so I am going to try to go through some of that because if I'm not using it, it's just taking up space in my craft room. So that will fit just fine, and one side does have some adhesive already on it. So I'll go ahead and take off the release paper for that. And put this down in the center there. So if you have scraps and you haven't been using them, get those things out and get them out of your storage area. There's no point in keeping it if you're not going to use it, and if you're at all like me, you have a lot of scraps that you need to get rid of. Get that good and covered, and then I'll center that on my card panel. And then I cut this piece out from the way that these are designed. You've got an outer edge, you've got the detail, and then you've got the inner edge. I just used the inner edge to cut this piece out, so it's going to lie perfectly right in the middle of that oval eyelet frame. And then I'm going to put my little, my cute little lamb. I think I am going to pop him up on some foam too, though. This guy is just adorable. And then the final touch is going to be this lovely gold bow to go right underneath. Next, I'm going to stamp a little message to go on the inside. I'm doing this on a separate piece of white cardstock that I've trimmed down a little bit, mostly because I'm using a colored card base. And I'm just going to do this in some purple that's going to match the purple that I used on the rest of the card, and that is just darling. So it says, I hope today is filled with sunshine and smiles. So let's go ahead and get that added on the inside of the card. And for that, I'm just going to use some dot liner adhesive. And the easiest way that I found to get it to be on there straight needs to go adhesive to the back, right? So we're going to line it up on the inside of the front, center it there. Make sure it's right side up. Okay, right side up. I didn't want to have to redo it because of it being adhered upside down, because guess what's happened before? Okay, and then just close it. And now that is pretty much in place. That's awesome. And I think I want to add a little bit of this purple to that as well. Maybe across the top. Yeah, I think that would look nice. Let's trim that down just a touch. So I've got that inner panel is 3 3/4 wide, so I'll just cut a little bit off. At least I think it's 3 3/4. And that will fit perfect. And that first card is done. For my second card, I decided to add the edge detailing that came in that same die kit. It basically adds a cute little eyelet border. So I am using that with some white cardstock, and then I'm putting some more of those scraps of foam on the back of it to basically go on the front of my card base. I'm using a dark blue card base and a piece of pattern paper from the pattern paper pack for this month's die of the month. Card kit of the month, yes. And then I'm going to add a little bit of art glitter glue on the back of the foam to give it some adhesion on that side and place it down on my card. And then I realized, oh yeah, I was going to make this a little bit smaller of a white piece to give enough room for my little lamb. So I'm going to pull that piece up before it has time to really stick and just cut off the top of it with my paper trimmer. And that's okay. This is liquid glue and it cleans up fairly easy, but even if it was a different type of adhesive, you can clean the blades with just some alcohol. It works fine. Next, I need a sentiment. I had already stamped out a bunch of the sentiments for an earlier project when I hadn't decided what I wanted to use. And I am just taking one of those that I've trimmed down and I'm putting it on a piece of, basically a scrap of that pattern paper that I used for this card already. And now I'm going to use the border piece from that eyelet die and just cut the edges off. I'm basically just wanting to give a little bit of interest to the edges of this light blue paper instead of making them just straight like I usually do. And any kind of border die or scissors or whatever would work great for this. There are some decorative Fiskars type scissors that I've still got in my stash, but I really wanted to use this little die because it hasn't gotten any love so far. So now I'm just kind of trying different layouts, well, trying out the layout, figuring out what I want to go where. And now I'm going to go ahead and start adhering it all down. I think this is going to turn out so cute. So I'm putting down some liquid glue on the back of my gold butterfly, and you can look at that and you can tell that is metal. I love this stuff. And then I'm going to put down the sentiment and then that final little flower. And then as a finishing touch, and I didn't show this on camera, but I picked out one of the little pieces from the ephemera pack and added a little butterfly to the front of my card too. For my last card, I couldn't decide what pattern paper to use, so I decided to use several. I'm putting some scrapbook.com double-sided adhesive tape on the back of a card panel, and by doing that, I'm going to be able to add different pieces of cardstock to the back of that, or rather different pieces of pattern paper. This is all that thin pattern paper that came in the card kit. So I'm just putting down, I think it's like 2.5, 2 strips, and then putting a little bit of extra on the edge. And then I'm going to trim off some 1-inch strips of different patterns of the pattern paper to put on the front of this little panel. Before I did that though, I wanted to make sure that I got my card panel pretty much straight, so I used my paper trimmer to trim all of that down. But remember how I said earlier that you can clean the blades on your paper trimmer? That's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take my little bottle of rubbing alcohol and spray it down after pulling off any kind of excess, but I'm going to go ahead and spray it down and wipe that down using a paper towel. You do have to be careful though, because if you press too hard, you're liable to cut yourself through the paper. Now that I've got all those little strips taken, cut down and arranged in kind of the order that I want them to go on, I'm going to create some diagonal striped pattern paper. I don't do this very often, probably because dealing with that double-sided adhesive, because it's so sticky, is sometimes a pain, but it did turn out so pretty and it gave a little bit extra, I don't know, a little extra interest to the background that I'm creating for this card. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to peel off the release paper, and I decided this time around I was going to take off a little bit at a time instead of the whole thing. You could take everything off at once. I'll just try to keep your fingers out of the adhesive. That's my biggest issue. And then I'm putting down different patterns. Basically, I'm just going to repeat the same pattern a couple of times and just cover that entire panel. I didn't quite go all the way across in a couple of places, and you see there's all these extra bits that are hanging off, so I'm going to cut off the pieces that are hanging off, and then I'll use some of those to fill in those little gaps that I still have, using the same pattern as was already used on that line. For instance, I've got this greenery one that I'm going to use in a couple of places because, of course, it didn't go all the way across. And this is so simple and easy to do, and I really should do this technique a little bit more often. Once all those strips have been added, I can go ahead and trim my panel down so that it's going to fit on the front of an A2 size card, and so that all four sides are straight and square. That's probably the biggest issue with trying to do something like this. I think this pattern turned out super pretty. It is really soft and light and springtime like. Springy, I guess, is a good word. I'm also trimming it down a little bit smaller than A2 so that I can have that little border that I like to have around the edges, and it just turned out so polished. Along with all of the pattern paper and ephemera and such that's in the card kit of the month, there's also these chipboard pieces, and I decided I'm going to use the frame that's in there. Now, it looks like it's like one big piece, but each of these is actually a little piece on top of each other. So I'm going to take the gold foil frame and back it with another piece of pattern paper, this light blue that I used earlier. I just need to trim this one down a little bit so it fits right behind the frame and doesn't have any of my paper showing. Okay, I think I'm ready to start putting things together. So I am adding some liquid glue onto the back of that pattern paper panel that we created, and I'm having some clogging issues with my bottle of art glitter glue. Goodness, I think it's just that I need to refill it, so it's not wanting to work the way it's supposed to. Anywho, I'm going to go ahead and center that on the front of this green card panel, green card base rather, and then I can start adding the pieces on top. Now, I am loving that little lamb, but you know what? I think I need a bunny. So I'm making one of the little bunnies first just by adding one of the ears on, and then I can start kind of putting the rest of it together, figure out exactly what I want to do. Okay, I changed my mind. I'm putting the base part of both of the ears down, and then I can figure out where I want to put it on the card. I hate it when I forget what I did during the video. So I'm playing around with different bits that I want to put on the front of the card, some of the ephemera and that sort of thing, and then I pick out this one sentiment that I really like. It says, "I hope this makes you smile." So I am fussy cutting around that so that it's kind of snug against all of those letters, especially the scripty part, and I'm going to use this as one of the pieces that I put on the front of the card. The chipboard frame is also adding just a little bit of dimension, so I'm using some of those scraps of fun foam on the back of some of my critters, well, okay, on the back of both of my critters, to pop them up just a little bit so that they're more flush with the front of the card. I want them to have dimension. I don't want them to have too much dimension, and I want them to not be lumpy is the thing. I know that that's not really a technical or crafty term, but I am giving that a try, and guess what? I put too much fun foam on there, and I'm having to go back and add a little bit on the outside of the frame so that my critter is basically flush with it. Yeah, the frame was going to cause a big lump and it wasn't going to be flat like I need it, so yeah, I just added a little extra foam and it turns out perfect. And next I do kind of the same thing with the bunny. I'm putting some fun foam inside the frame and outside the frame underneath the bunny so that it's going to be flush with the front of the card. Now for that part of his ear that is folded over, I decided to go with some thicker fun foam, a scrap. I probably should have just used 2 layers of fun foam. It would have given a little more dimension, but I still think it turned out okay. I'm just going to cut a little piece of that off and stick it on that folded over piece of his ear so that can go in place. To finish up things on this card, I just grabbed out a couple more pieces of ephemera out of my little collection there, and I'm adding them to the card. I'm also grabbing another one of those pretty gold foil ribbons to add to my little bunny. I just love how these cards turned out, and if you want to see some more videos where I am making some more cards using some Spellbinders products, be sure to check out one of these videos over here. You guys have a wonderful day, and remember, if I can make it, you can too. See you next time.